Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start today's video with a story that proves free doesn't mean you get to be picky. ROP offered up a nearly new sofa for free, only to have someone show up, criticize it, and even ask for more free furniture before walking away. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Free sofa turns into a free comedy show. I recently moved and decided to downsize some of my furniture. My old sofa was practically brand new, barely used, no stains, no rips, but it didn't fit the aesthetic of the new place. Instead of bothering with selling it, I figured I'd just do something nice and post it for free in a local free stuff group. Within minutes, my inbox blew up with messages from people who desperately needed a sofa. I picked one woman who sounded genuinely excited and said she could come that same evening. "Thank you so much," she gushed. "I really need this. You're a lifesaver." Perfect, I thought. Someone who truly needs it will get good use out of it, and I get my living room space back. She shows up right on time, which I thought was a good sign, until she actually stepped into my apartment. She walked over to the sofa, looked it up and down, then immediately frowned. "Oh," she said slowly, "I don't like this beige color." "Couldn't you have bought something in gray or navy? Those are trending right now." I stood there for a second, processing what she'd just said. "Lady, this is free. I'm literally giving you a perfectly good sofa that could have easily sold for a couple $100. And the first thing out of your mouth is that it's not trendy enough?" But she wasn't done. She sat on it, pressed on the cushions, and then started inspecting the fabric as though she was deciding whether to buy it in a showroom. She said, "The cushions feel kind of firm. Is this microfiber? I really prefer linen." I laughed awkwardly and said, it's free? So, kind of a take it or leave it situation?" Apparently she took that as an invitation to keep going, because then she asked, completely seriously, "Do you happen to have a coffee table you could throw in? Something that matches?" I blinked. "You mean for free?" "Yeah," she said with a shrug, like it was the most reasonable request in the world. At that point, I was so dumbfounded I could barely respond. I just said, "Well, you could always paint the sofa if you wanted it a different color." She wrinkled her nose and said, "That's too much work. Maybe I'll just wait until someone else posts a better one." Then she just left. I stood there staring at the sofa for a solid minute, trying to figure out what had just happened. I'd expected someone to be grateful, maybe even a little emotional about getting a free piece of furniture they needed. Instead, I basically hosted a one-woman episode of House Hunters Entitled Edition. She wasted my time, insulted the sofa, and acted like I was running a free furniture showroom. I ended up reposting the sofa, and the next person who came for it was actually appreciative. Thanked me 3 times, helped carry it out, and even offered me a little cash for my trouble. But that first woman, she's the reason I'll probably think twice before giving away anything for free ever again. I honestly cannot wrap my head around the level of entitlement it takes to criticize a free item, request more free stuff, and then walk away because it's not exactly what you had in mind. "You mean to tell me that you give away couches without a matching coffee table? Sounds like you're the entitled one. They're doing you the favor of taking your couch from you, and it's not even their color of choice." Which, side note, how dare you don't keep up on sofa color trends? And our second story. The Garden Wars, how a trespassing neighbor learned the hard way. When my husband and I moved into our new house this January, we thought we'd found our dream home. The side yard was a sunny little stretch of grass that separated us from the house next door, perfect for a small raised vegetable garden. By March, I had my planters built and filled with tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and melons. The first time my elderly neighbor saw me pulling up sod to set the garden beds, she marched over with her hands on her hips. "You know," she said, glaring at the exposed dirt, "I should get your husband on you for tearing up that grass." I laughed it off and told her that my husband loved the idea and couldn't wait for fresh veggies. She gave me a thin smile and shuffled back home. For a while, things were quiet. In fact, she even accepted bags of fresh tomatoes and peppers from me during the summer. But then, out of nowhere, she turned hostile. One afternoon, a city code enforcement officer knocked on my door. He explained that someone had filed a complaint about my garden being full of dead plants. I walked him to the side yard where lush vines were spilling over the edges of the planters and peppers were hanging heavy on the stems. The officer actually laughed. "This looks fantastic," he said. "You're not in violation of anything." Apparently, my neighbor didn't appreciate his verdict. A week later, I came home to find my cantaloupe and watermelon vines shredded, tire tracks cutting through the soil. I confronted her while she was still mowing. "Stay off my property," I said, pointing at the clear line where her mower had crossed. She just turned away and kept mowing, deliberately rolling her machine back and forth on my grass before heading home. The next day was worse. I went outside to throw something in the trash and caught her in the act, standing in my garden with a bag of granular poison, sprinkling it right over my plants. My heart dropped. I pulled out my phone and started filming. "Get off my property," I shouted. She looked me dead in the eye and kept spreading poison. That night, both my dogs got sick, vomiting, diarrhea, lethargy. It was terrifying. They hadn't been near the garden, but the timing was too much to be a coincidence. When the police came, I showed them the video. The officer confronted her in front of me. She screamed, waved her arms, and at one point actually smirked when I mentioned my dog's illness. That smile made my blood boil, and the cop clearly noticed it too. "You need to get cameras on every corner of your house," he told me quietly. "This woman isn't done." At first, I didn't press charges. I just wanted peace. But over the next week, she kept coming back. My cameras caught her walking right past the no trespassing sign to mow 4 feet into my yard again and again. That was the breaking point. I went down to the police station, filed a formal trespassing complaint, and pressed charges for destruction of property and harassment. The officer I spoke with assured me that the video evidence was strong and that this wasn't going to be a slap on the wrist. The fallout was glorious. A restraining order was issued, and she's now legally barred from stepping foot on my property. Code enforcement fined her for unauthorized pesticide use, which I didn't even know they could do. But apparently using poison on someone else's land is a big no-no. She also has to reimburse me for the cost of removing and remediating the contaminated soil. My husband and I spent the weekend putting up taller fences and new cameras. The garden beds are empty for now, but they'll be replanted soon with fresh soil and even more veggies. The other neighbors who had quietly supported me this whole time came over with coffee and cookies to celebrate when they saw the sheriff's car parked outside her house. The old woman now avoids eye contact completely. No more mowing near my yard, no more wandering onto my property. She sits on her porch and glares, which I can live with just fine. Next season, when my first watermelons ripen, I'm going to enjoy every bite while waving at her from my fenced-in, camera-protected garden. You pressed charges when it became clear she wouldn't stop. That's smart. The fact that she ended up slapped with a restraining order, fines, and the cost of fixing your garden makes the ending so satisfying. And our next story. Mom, dad, and son go full Karen mode at airport. I was traveling last week and ended up witnessing one of the most disgusting displays of entitlement I've ever seen. I was standing in line at the airport to drop off my luggage. It wasn't busy, and I was second in line behind a family, a dad, mom, and teenage son. They were loud, restless, and complaining about everything from the price of bottled water to the length of the line. An employee appeared, escorting an older woman in a wheelchair. She was clearly disabled. Her legs were thin and twisted in a way that made it obvious she couldn't walk. The employee wheeled her to the front and began checking her bags. It took maybe 5 minutes. The family ahead of me started muttering loudly. The son complained that they shouldn't have to wait. The mom loudly accused the woman of probably faking it to skip the line, and the dad started going on about how he was a veteran and deserved respect. The energy turned hostile very quickly. Before I knew it, the mom marched up to the counter, demanding to know why the woman was allowed to go first, insisting that her husband's status as a war hero meant they should be given priority. The staff member remained calm and explained that they were required to assist disabled passengers first. The family didn't like that answer. The son shouted something cruel and offensive about the woman faking it, and the dad suddenly decided he would prove it. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed the back of the wheelchair and flipped it over. The sound of the woman hitting the floor was sickening. Her daughter screamed and rushed to help her, and the entire check-in area froze. I was moving before I even realized it. Stepping between the dad and the terrified employee he was now shouting at, I told him exactly what I thought of him and told the employee to get security. He tried to stop her, lunging forward, but I stuck my leg out and tripped him before he could reach her. He hit the floor hard, scrambled up, and turned on me with his fists clenched. By then, security was on the scene. They separated us immediately, asked for everyone's account, and the staff confirmed what had happened. The dad tried to lie and say I'd attacked him and tipped the wheelchair over, but half the people in line were already speaking up, telling security what they'd seen. He still tried to go for me, throwing a wild punch, but missed. I grabbed his arm and twisted it into an arm bar until security ordered me to release him. They cuffed him right there in front of everyone. The mom started screaming about her rights and how we were all conspiring against them, and the son kept shouting that the woman was faking. Security didn't even bother arguing. They escorted all three of them out while the dad yelled about suing the airport. The rest of us helped the poor woman back into her chair. She was shaken, but thankfully not seriously hurt. The airline staff apologized profusely and offered to upgrade her to first class and personally escort her to the gate. A few minutes later, I saw the dad again, this time being walked through the terminal by police and airport security toward the airport holding area. Later, I overheard a staff member say he'd been charged with assault and disturbing the peace, and that the entire family had been banned from flying that airline in the future. As for me, I got a drink voucher from the airline, and about a dozen people came up to thank me for stepping in. But honestly, the best part was knowing that the entitled family had completely humiliated themselves in public, gotten themselves banned, and had probably just ruined their own trip. The real karmic punch here is that they didn't just get thrown out of the airport for the day, they got banned from that airline, and Dad walked away with actual criminal charges. Instead of a smooth vacation, they got a humiliating walk of shame through the terminal while everyone watched. And our last story. Evil landlord stole my car. For 8 years, I've been renting a parking space behind a house in a busy city. It's not cheap, but it's convenient, and I've kept an older vehicle there that I don't use every day. Every month, I mailed a check with parking at XX Road clearly written on the memo line, and every month the check cleared. It was a quiet arrangement until a few weeks ago. When I went to check on my car recently, the space was empty. At first, I thought I'd parked on the wrong side, or maybe it was towed for some temporary construction work. But after a few calls, I learned that my landlord, a property management company, had towed it themselves. Not only that, but after the impound lot's waiting period passed, they authorized it to be scrapped. They destroyed my car. When I called them, the landlord's son, who now runs the company after his father stepped back due to health issues, tried to explain it away as an honest mistake. Apparently, they didn't know whose car it was, assumed it was abandoned, and wanted a spot available for a new tenant. Their records apparently didn't show me as the tenant renting that space, despite years of checks they'd been cashing and emails we'd exchanged when I first got the car, including one where I sent them the exact make, model, and color so they could note it in their records. I told him flat out that this wasn't just a mistake, it was negligence. I have a valid lease, I said. I've paid on time every month for years, and you never contacted me, not once, about moving the car before scrapping it. He tried to claim they had no way to reach me. I reminded him that my phone number and email address are both listed on my lease and that we've emailed before. He admitted he'd seen the payments, but assumed they were for another space and never looked closer. I hung up and immediately called a lawyer. We put together a letter outlining everything. My signed lease, years of bank statements showing rent payments, the emails confirming my car's details, and a demand for compensation. I wasn't just asking for the blue book value of the car. I asked for every month of rent I'd paid since the day that they towed it, plus a written release of liability so I couldn't be charged for towing or storage fees. The lawyer sent the demand letter. The next day, I got a call from the landlord's son. His tone was very different this time, apologetic, professional, and more than a little nervous. He said they wanted to resolve things without court and asked to meet in person. When I arrived, he already had a check waiting for me, not just for the value of the car, but also for 6 months' rent and the legal fees I'd incurred. I could tell he wanted the problem to go away quietly, and honestly, I was fine with that. I signed the release, terminated the lease, and told him plainly that if this was how they treated their paying tenants, I wouldn't be doing business with them again. You got lucky that I'm reasonable, I told him before leaving. Anyone else might have dragged you through court for triple damages. You might want to fix your record keeping before someone else does. A week later, I drove past the property. Someone new had parked there, but the landlord had posted a shiny new sign on the wall with a number to call before towing and a notice that all vehicles must be registered with the office. Looks like my little legal nudge forced them to tighten up their entire system. And I walked away with a fat check and the satisfaction of knowing my abandoned car cost them way more than if they just picked up the phone in the first place. The absolute gall of the landlord to claim they didn't know whose car it was after 8 years of cashing your checks is infuriating. And the excuse that they had no way to contact you despite having your phone number, email, and lease on file? That's not just sloppy, that's straight up negligence. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.